Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be introducing some very useful lag dodging techniques in FL Studio used for Black MIDI production. First, make sure you have the correct version of this software installed on your device. According to testing done by the Black MIDI community, FL Studio 12.3 is known to be the fastest version of FL Studio ever made in history. So always use this exact build of this software when you are able to. If you want to have some of the new functions introduced in FL Studio 20, then I would recommend 20.0.1. That is the second fastest version of this software. The first trick I'm going to introduce today is content in title bars. Many music producers may not have even noticed that this thing exists. However, this thing is actually incredibly useful for Black MIDIs. When you have this option unchecked in your playlist under View Content in Title Bars, you will notice that you can no longer see the content in your patterns. They are now hidden. You can only see the outline. This will make scrolling through your playlist smoother than ever. As a comparison, I will have this option on just for a short amount of time just to let you see how laggy this thing becomes with this option enabled. Now let's disable it again. And as you can see, very nice and smooth. Next, I'm going to talk about something related to audio. There are a few options in this audio panel that I would like to introduce which will significantly improve the playback performance of FL Studio. First, make sure that you have this Save Overloads option enabled. This thing is incredibly useful because it prevents the software's UI from freezing when overloads occur. When you encounter a crash point in your Black MIDI, this thing is gonna save your life, because when you have it disabled and you play through a crash point, it's gonna make this whole software freeze and you can't even click pause to get out of the crash point. If you have this option enabled, however, things will be completely different. You can just click pause and get out of the crash point when you get into one. Next, I will recommend you set playback tracking to mixer. This option has the best playback performance out of all three options according to my testing. Also, make sure you have this Smart Disable and these two multi-threading option enabled. It's going to significantly improve the playback performance and also help you get out of crash points easier. With all of these options set, let's see how fast we can get out of a crash point when we get into one. For example, this one over here. Just simply press pause and we are out of it. Now we can continue to do other operations in this software just like it has never happened. There's no need to kill the process with Task Manager and lose all your progress. Another trick about audio. I'm not sure if you have noticed that starting from Windows 8, I don't know what sort of shit Microsoft put in their WinMM.dir that make the MIDI playback performance significantly worse than Windows 7. And it continued to get worse and worse from Windows 10 and Windows 11. To solve this issue, the Black MIDI community created a magical solution called WinMM Warp. To use this, make sure you have installed this popular MIDI synth made by people from the Black MIDI community called OMNI MIDI. This MIDI synth has a very interesting function called Windows Multimedia Warper that warps WinMM.dir and redirects the function calls to a custom function written by the author, which is much faster than the one built in Windows. Now we just have to choose this standard performance improvement patch and choose FL64.exe and apply the patch. For most MIDI software, this is already enough, but for FL Studio, there are a few extra steps we need to take for the patch to work. Let's go into the software installation directory, which should be C program files x86 image line FL Studio 12 by default. And here, we need to rename this wingmm.dir to another name. For example, here, I named it patch.dir. After that, we need to do some modifications in FL Engine x64.dir and also FL64.exe to make this patch work. Let's edit this dir file with the CFF Explorer. Go to Import Directory, scroll down, and find wingmm.dir. Double-click on the text box here and rename this component to patch.dir, or whatever name you give this dir. After you've done that, save it, and we are done with the dir. Next, we need to also modify fl64.exe. Go to Import Adder and click Add. Then select patch.dir. Choose all of the functions here and click Import by name. Then click Rebuild Import Table and save it. Then we are done with all the modifications. When you open up FL Studio once again, you will notice that OMNI MIDI is the only possible MIDI output device here. If this happens, that means the patch works. Another method you can use to prove that the patch works is through the debug window. When you open up the debug window, it should say KDM API status enabled using WinMM-WAP. And that's it. We've successfully patched the FL Studio to use KDM API. The last thing I'm going to introduce today is about MIDI export. You may already know that the built-in MIDI exporting function in FL Studio is very slow. So to solve this issue, the Black MIDI community created this amazing tool called FLP to MID. You just choose an FLP that you want to convert, and it will convert it straight into MID. How good is that? But there is some huge drawbacks of this tool that you need to be aware of when you are using it. First, it can only take in FLP files created from FL Studio 20.6 or above. If we feed it with an FLP file created in an older version, what you will encounter is patterns disappear out of nowhere and all kinds of other weird glitches. The easiest way to solve this issue is to have a portable FL Studio 20 on your device to convert the projects you created in FL Studio 12 to a newer version supported by the converter. All you have to do now is go to File, Open, choose the project you created in FL Studio 12, then Save As. After that, just feed the exported FLP file to the converter. Now there are a few interesting options of this converter that I want to introduce. First, let's have a look at this option, Enforce Mapping Color to Channel. When you have this option enabled, what it will do is it will ignore the actual value you set to this option inside the MIDI out plugin. It will always assume that this Map Note Color to MIDI channel option is enabled. Next, let's have a look at the echo effect. What this does is it will enable the echo effect over here. You can change the feed, the time, and the echoes. And all the other options here are unsupported. Sorry. Note that this echo effect is still in beta state and there's still quite a long distance from FL Studio's original implementation of this function. Next, let's have a look at Export Muted Patterns. What this does is it will ignore whether the patterns are muted or not in your playlist. It will always export everything. Otherwise, it will not export the patterns that you have muted. The next option is a very interesting one, 132 keys. If you look closely at FL Studio's piano roll, you will notice that this is not the standard 128 keys. It's instead being 132 with 4 extra keys that literally does nothing. I don't really know why ImageLine did this, but as long as they are there, I want to be able to get the most out of it. And that's when this option comes in. It finally satisfied my dream of creating a full 132 keys large MIDI. Yeah! Now comes to the last option, full velocity. When this thing is enabled, this program will ignore whatever velocity you give to each note and assume all of them are 127. Now it's time for a benchmark. Let's see how fast this thing actually is. Are you guys ready? 1, 2, 3, go! And within just the span of a few seconds, it's already done. Look at that! And here's the second big drawback of using this converter. It only converts note events, nothing else. No automation, no MIDI CC. If you want to use them, then you have to go through all of these described in the tutorial here, step by step, to create a MIDI file containing only automation and MIDI CC. Then export this with the FL Studio built-in MIDI exporting function. At last, merge these two MIDIs together and you finally obtained the final product. This is a lot more complicated than using the FL Studio built-in MIDI exporting tool straight away, but at least you don't have to wait for 100 years for that final product to come. Okay guys, this is the end of this video. I hope you learned something. Please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also check out my GitHub. I have plenty of interesting tools there related to Black MIDI that may help you. See you in the next episode.